In 2022, the Giants were 10 games over 500 after a win in Pittsburgh on June 18th. They collapsed all the way to 8 games under 500 after being swept by the Dodgers on September 18th. Though they did get hot to play a meaningful game on October 1st, they were eliminated in their fifth to final game, and they ended up finishing at 81-81. In 2023, the Giants were 13 games over 500 on July 19th after winning a suspended game in Cincinnati, and then collapsed all the way to a 79-83 finish. Here in 2025, the Giants were 12 games over 500 after a win at Dodger Stadium on June 13th. And now, here on July 29th, they have collapsed all the way down to 500. The Giants went 81-81 in 2022, 79-83 in 2023, 80-82 last year. And after a year of so much promise, a year that truly felt very different, here we are staring down the barrel of a fourth straight mediocre season for the Giants. And there were times, and of course, in 2023, I mentioned they were 13 games over 500 that year. In June, they won 10 in a row. They were playing incredible ball. Some guys in the clubhouse were comparing it to 2021. I was never sold on that team. I truly was on this team. They started off 24-14. This year truly felt different. But since their 24-14 start, they have never been able to truly find it. They had the 7-game winning streak at the beginning of June, but they struggled after that. They won 7 out of 9 to get to 9 games over 500. But they have since lost 11 of their last 13 games. Tonight, it was a 3-1 loss to the Pittsburgh Pirates. And as I mentioned on the postgame Sunday, they may have come in with a 44-62 record. Now it's 46-62. But they were playing good ball. They came in winners of 5 of 6. And of course, now taking the first 2 of the series, 7 of 8. And so even as bad a season as they've had, they've been playing better ball since firing Derek Shelton and replacing him with Don Kelly. And they are a dangerous team right now. Justin Verlander, fresh off his long-awaited first win as a Giant last Wednesday in Atlanta, was okay. 5 innings, 6 hits, a run, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. But for the second time in the last 3 nights, Elliot Ramos made an absolutely boneheaded base-running blunder. With runners at first and second, 1 out, and Matt Chapman at the plate in the bottom of the first inning, he had a pop-up on the third base side of the infield. Actually, really between the mound and home plate on the third base side, with the fact that ordinary effort was by an infielder was needed by an infielder to make that catch. The infield fly was called. Now, with the infield fly called, the tag play, or the ability for a runner to get doubled off a base still depends on whether the ball is caught or not. They let the ball fall. Elliot Ramos, who of course already had his boneheaded base-running blunder Sunday, went on the check swing roller to Ron Mauricio at third. He broke towards third after Mauricio had fielded the ball right next to the bag. It's like, what the hell is this guy doing? Here he's called off second. After the ball falls, they throw to second. They tag him out to end the inning. Kyle Foster is here with us at Napa Sports News. Well, in the comments, he will be with us on the stream for our trade deadline special Thursday at 2:30. He wanted Ramos benched after Sunday. I thought that was a little much, though. Actually, I hadn't realized until after I rewatched it, after I did my postgame on Sunday, that Ramos had taken off towards third, after the ball was fielded by the Mets third baseman, Ron Mauricio. Kyle said it, Ramos has to be benched now. I absolutely agree. And if Billy Martin was the manager of this team, he would have been taken out of the game right then and there. That is unacceptable. It's the kind of thing that you see in baseball every night now, with the fact that the nerds aren't teaching guys that run these teams aren't teaching these guys basic fundamentals. So the Pirates end up winning it 3-1. Joey Bart, former Giant, sure it felt good. Base hit to left. That knocked in Nick Gonzalez. And then the longtime veteran Tommy Pham scored on a groundout by Leo Verpagero. The Pirates, with 2 runs in the top of the 8th inning off Tyler Rogers, beat the Giants by a final of 3-1, and the Giants fall all the way to 500 at 54-54. Worst of all, the Padres once again beat the Mets tonight. The final down in San Diego, 7-1. The Padres scored 5 runs in the bottom of the 7th inning, and the Giants are now 5 games back of the 3rd wild card, as you can see right there. And then now they have 2 more teams they're going to have to leapfrog in order to catch the Padres, the Reds and the Cardinals. I said last Monday was rock bottom because it was. And just 8 days later, we have hit an even lower rock bottom. Kyle says the sky is falling. It's time to panic a bit. I'm just going to be honest right now. I said on my post game last Monday that the Giants had to get it together sooner. They were going to be in trouble, and the season was going to be in jeopardy. Well, the Giants are in trouble. The season is in jeopardy. And with the 7 games the Giants are going to have against the Padres, 3 at Oracle in 2 weeks, 3 at Oracle in 2 weeks, 4 at San Diego in 3 weeks. If the Giants do not turn things around in the next 3 weeks, then they're done. Plain simple as that. This makes the trade deadline less than 48 hours from now all the more interesting. Buster Posey insisted going into this series that they are buyers. But one concern I have is that Buster built this team based around situational hitting. Now he says what he really wants is a power bat. And it's basically like, wait a minute, we're doing, you built this team based around situational hitting, gave you a great spring, gave you this 24-14 start, and now you want to go back to the old failed Farhan strategy of trying to hit home runs at Oracle Park? Are you kidding me? What the hell is going on here? And that's one of the reasons they've collapsed, is they just started trying to hit home runs in May. Jung-Hoo Lee has done maybe a better job of not trying to pull, but for the most part, after getting up to a great start by hitting the ball to all fields, he's still trying to pull everything. What the hell's going on here? This was supposed to be the team that went to the old style of baseball to show the league how it's done, and they did that. They did that en route to a 24-14 start. Why on earth are they trying to hit home runs? Why are they trying to revive the failed Farhan strategy of the last 4 years? Why? It makes absolutely no sense. Kyle says, I just don't know how much Buster could fix at the deadline. The trade I'd make is trading someone like Grant McCray to Pittsburgh for Mitch Keller. Now, he didn't have the greatest start against the Giants last night. I think he could do decently. This offense, all they need to do is just do what they did in April. That's it. It's not rocket science. And we saw it. We saw it in their win against the Red Sox back on June 22nd, doing everything from situational baseball to pitching and defense and even the home run or two. We saw them do it the last 2 games in Atlanta, last Tuesday and Wednesday. Why are they trying to hit home runs? What is going on here? Kyle says second base, catcher, 2/5 of the rotation. That's something this isn't something that can be fixed in the next 48 hours. Nope. Though they do need to call Tyler Fitzgerald back up. He's swinging the bat well in Sacramento. They can't let him languish down there. Call him back up. I mean, Patrick Bailey is... he's had a really unfortunate season. But what was one of the most concerning things was, I assumed that the Giants had some sort of team meeting after their loss last Monday in Atlanta, and it sounded like they did. Matt Chapman hinted that there was at least a talk, so it appeared to work. And by the way, Bailey's hitting 207. Ugh. Melvin said in his postgame presser tonight that there have been team meetings, plural. The thing is with a team meeting is those have to be perfectly timed, and you can't keep having them because then they lose all meaning. Melvin said, quote, "We've had meetings, team meetings, all kinds of meetings. It's just about showing a little bit more resolve." Well, Bob, sorry, you haven't been able to get it out of them. And let's be honest, as we stare down the barrel now at our fourth straight mediocre season, none of these teams of the last 4 years have been the best on paper. They played completely over their heads in the biggest fluke season in the history of the game in 2021. They played over their heads at various points in 3 of these last 4 seasons. But they're just not the best team. They're not the worst team, but they're far from the best team. And maybe the long-term strategy here shouldn't be to rely on a mediocre to decent core of guys. They don't need to tear down and rebuild. They have the pieces right now where they can still be mediocre at worst and compete into September at best next season. But one, that's not enough. And two, they're about to get old. At some point between 2027 and 2029, they're going to collapse. The Giants have to build the farm. And I am not advocating for a tear-down rebuild. They can build the farm system while simultaneously competing. They do need to sell off some guys, someone like a Robbie Ray, and then you can replace them in free agency. Perhaps I think Camille Doval would also be a good piece to sell off in the offseason. The Giants should be looking to sell off Ray and Doval in the offseason. I don't care if they win the World Series. The Giants need to build the farm system. Because if they don't do that, then come the latter part of this decade in the 2030s, we're going to be in for years of losing baseball. Steven Kwan would be a great guy to trade for. And as much as I like Elliot Ramos, and I do believe next year could truly be his breakout season as he enters the prime of his career, I would be begrudgingly willing to trade Ramos for a Steven Kwan. But after those boneheaded mistakes tonight, that's going to make things a hell of a lot harder in terms of trading Ramos for Kwan. It's very unlikely the Giants will be able to trade for someone like Kwan. Their best hope is to trade a McRae for Mitch Keller and maybe a Luciano for Sean Murphy. Don't give up any more in the farm. And as I said the other night, Bryce Eldridge he isn't ready. Now, last week, I lambasted people who talked about firing Bob Melvin. And I did so because, well, one, no manager has lasted less than 4 years for the Giants since Jimmy Davenport in 1985. What's funny is that the Giants had 2 managers last less than a year. They had Danny Ozark, who finished the 1984 season for Frank Robinson, who himself lasted less than 4 years, just less than 4 years. And then they had Davenport managed the first 5.5 months of 85 before handing over the reins to Roger Craig. Though actually, great, you could technically say Gabe Kapler managed less than 4 years because he was fired prior to the final 3-game series against the Dodgers on Friday, September the 29th of 2023. So it's like getting rid of Melvin after just 2 years. That's a little over the top. Or at least I had thought that. And I'm not saying they need to. But getting rid of him after 2 years in which, they weren't terrible years. They were far from terrible years, though let's be honest, this would be a terrible year if it wasn't for their 24-14 start. But at the same time, you just can't help but wonder. Bob Melvin's getting a little up there in age. He's always been a good manager. His pitching decisions haven't been the greatest, but he's always gotten success out of his teams. The Giants are the fifth team he's managed. Of the previous four teams he's managed, he's guided them all to winning seasons, and he's guided three of them to the playoffs, two of them to the LCS. Melvin's 63 years old. And last year, he just looked really depressed, having to take orders from Farhan and having Farhan manage a non-baseball guy manage his games for him. He seemed so much happier at the beginning of this season. But this stretch has definitely taken a toll on him. And you can't help but wonder if, after so many years of managing, and he has managed all but 2 years since 2003 when he became the manager of the Mariners. He was there 03 and 04 with the Diamondbacks from 05 till May of 09. He had, of course, May of 09 until June of 2011 off, and then from June of 2011 through 2021 was the manager of the A's, 22 and 23 the manager of the Padres, these last 2 years manager of the Giants. You just can't help but wonder if maybe Melvin's a little burned out. And maybe either just, he's managed a long time. Maybe he either needs to hang it up or be like Bochy and take a few years off. Managing takes a lot out of you. And I think, I'm not saying the Giants need to get rid of Melvin, and I would like to see the Giants bring Melvin back next year. I mean, Buster committed to him for next season, but you just can't help but wonder if the guy's a bit burned out and could maybe use a few years off from the game. Because the sky is definitely falling. They're 5 games back, exactly now 2/3 of the way through the season with 54 games to go, and they have a lot of opportunities in front of them, and I do believe, I'm not ruling this out. I mean, they have it in them to get hot, to make a run at this thing, to win 85, maybe to 88 games and go to the playoffs. But this is the best the National League has been in the 3 wild card era. The Phillies got the 3rd wild card in 2022 at 87 and 75. The Diamondbacks got the 3rd wild card in 2023 at 84 and 78. And the Mets got the 3rd wild card last year at 89 and 73. The National League has been really good this season. It may take up to 90 wins, possibly even more, to get the 3rd wild card. And not to mention, you don't have the tiebreakers anymore. Tiebreakers are determined by head-to-head records. The Giants are 2 and 4 against the Padres. So the Giants will have to go 5 and 2 in their 7 games against San Diego next month to have a winning record against them and be able to have the tiebreaker against them. Even if the Giants get hot, they come charging back in the next couple weeks, but they go 3 and 4 against San Diego, or they go 4 and 3 against San Diego. They're going to have a losing record against the Padres. It's probably going to take, you look at the fact that they're 5 out now, that they've fallen all the way back down to 500, and you look at the fact that it is probably going to take, at the very least, 87 wins, possibly even up to 91 wins to get into the playoffs. They're not done, and they shouldn't cash out on the season. But I would say right now, I would give them an honest 14% chance of going to the playoffs. They are probably not going to the playoffs. And if they do not turn things around in the next 3 weeks, then this season will be over. Kyle said, if we're getting a new manager, it needs to be a younger guy who believes in the old school, not another Kapler type. Absolutely. And Melvin's done a much better job than Kapler. I wouldn't, kind of guy who I wouldn't think, I don't want, I don't think we need to get rid of Melvin. However, if this team like really does collapse and say, they finish like 10 games under 500 and Melvin just continues to look burned out, then I might change my tune in a couple months. David Ross wouldn't be a bad choice. Maybe even going a little unorthodox and going within the organization, or maybe even Buster pulling one of his guys. I'll tell you who might not be a bad manager. It'd be a question if he would be up to doing it. Would be Brandon Belt. And that wouldn't be a bad idea to get a young guy, because the Giants need to start planning for the future. And by that, I don't mean tear things down, but they need to start building the farm and really plan for the future. And they can't make the same mistake that they made in the 2000s and that they made in the 2010s and just focus on now and ignore the future. They have to start focusing on the future now. Bringing in a young guy who can be here for many years to come, who can manage the team and be a consistent force for the team for 10 to 20 years. Bochy was here for 13. That would be a really good thing. I would feel horrible for Melvin, though, and maybe there's a little bias on my part with Melvin, because Melvin has, at one point, was one of the best managers in the game, has gotten a lot out of his teams. I've always admired and respected Bob Melvin. He's a true old school baseball guy, a guy who grew up a Giants fan, played for the Giants for 3 years. This was his dream job, to be the manager of the Giants. Mark DeRosa, no. No offense, but DeRosa is not a smart man. And with his recent comments, and we're going to get to that tomorrow night. I may do a show tomorrow night about the state of the game. Yeah, not Mark DeRosa. And with the comments DeRosa just made in regards to Rob Manfred, he's a guy who may not exactly have the respect of his team. Maybe someone like Ron Wotus. Now, I get it. He's a little older. He'll be 65 next year. But though I feel like Wotus is kind of tired of the day-to-day grind, wants to spend time with his family. That'd be cool if he finally got a shot. But this was Melvin's dream job, and I would feel so horrible if it ended just after 2 years. But at the same time, you do have to do what's best for the team. Yeah, Kyle floated Skip Schumacher. I don't know, though, because he seems more like an analytical kind of guy. Though I think he was the manager in Miami under Kim Ng, who is very much an old school kind of baseball person. By the way, she would be a great commissioner, Kim Ng. I think Kim Ng or Theo Epstein would be a great commissioner. But as I said, and I'll keep saying it, if the Giants 5 back now, exactly 2/3 of the way in the season, knocked all the way from 12 games over 500 to 500, if things do not turn around in the next 3 weeks, they're done. And 2025 will be the 4th straight year of mediocre Giants baseball. And the Giants have been in win now mode since 2022. Sam and I were texting earlier today about how he said the Giants didn't have a win now roster in 2022. They actually kind of did. Granted, they were a much older team in 2022, but the Giants signed guys like Carlos Rodon to come in there. And they had Logan Webb and Duvall and Tyler Rogers and Mike Yastrzemski. They were definitely in win now mode in 2022. The Giants have been in win now mode since their fluke season of 21, and now after 4 years of win now mode and just 4 years of mediocre baseball, you can't just keep relying on this. This is not a viable long-term strategy. One, because it's proven to not work, and two, because they're going to get old in a couple years. The Giants have pieces that they can build around. Guys like Eldridge, Ramos, Jung Hoo Lee, Logan Webb. perhaps Randy Rodriguez if he could turn out to be the Giants closer. But they have to focus on the future. They have to start building on the farm system and start developing a young core of guys who they can bring up in 2028 or 2029 to really give the Giants a chance to be a really good team from 2029 into the 2030s. The one thing, the Giants, of course, won 3 out of 5 from 2010 to 2014. I want to see the Giants have that kind of run again. I want to see the Giants be able to win 3 or 4 titles in a span of 5 to 10 years again. I want to see it happen. I think it's very doable. I want the Giants, who have the second most titles here in the 21st century, one behind the Red Sox, who have 4, and the Giants are one of only 2 teams to have 3, the other being then the Red Sox. I want the Giants to be the dominant team of the 21st century. And right now, what's been going on for the last now going on 9 years, 6 losing seasons in 8 years, just 1 winning season, the other a 500 season. And now possibly looking at their 7th losing season in 9 years. This is not acceptable. And I know this is not acceptable to Buster Posey, who had known almost nothing but winning throughout most of his career. But the thing is I'm just a little worried that Buster is making the same mistake that Sabian made. And is focusing on the here and now too much, as he should always focus on the here and now, but is focusing only on the here and now and ignoring the future, which is already bad enough. It was already bad enough when the Giants were going through a semi-dynasty over a decade ago. But it's even worse when you're in win now mode with a group of guys who just aren't the best. They're not the worst. They could get you to the playoffs if the National League was weaker. And maybe they could play over their heads and get you to a 90-win season. But this is not a core group of guys to be in win now mode with. And throughout the first half, I thought this was a 90 to 95 win team. I think I just got too excited about this team. I think I overestimated this team. They've got talent. They've got some damn good players on this team. Guys like Willie Adames and Jung-Hoo Lee and Elliot Ramos. They've had best bullpen in baseball this year. But they played over their heads. I think they were really excited for Farhan to be gone. And remember, Melvin had that team meeting after the Giants were swept by the Padres on September 15th of last year. And I always suspected that he said something like, hey, there's going to be some changes next year. And of course, the players hated Farhan. Now, I don't have any proof of that, but it certainly seemed like it. I'm not going to be. And so this is what I'm saying right now is just pure, utter speculation. But bear with me. Melvin very may well said, guys, we're going to have some major changes next year. But one thing I know for sure is I'm going to be here and you're all going to be here. So let's finish this season on a good note, show up and be ready to go next year in February in Scottsdale. Finish out the season on a good year, then let's show up in Scottsdale in February and be ready to go next year. Giants won 9 of their final 12, had a great spring, and then, of course, got off to their 24-14 start. I think, because I've seen this before, where a team gets rid of a toxic presence, whether it's a player, whether it's a manager, maybe a coach or a front office guy, and they're really motivated to win without that guy. We saw the Rangers play way over their heads in 2004 after they traded A-Rod. And they finished over 500 and contended to the final week of the season. And I think the Giants were going to be one of those teams here in 2025. And I actually was making a comparison in late April to the 2005 White Sox. So the Giants were doing things a lot like what the White Sox did. They were just kind of doing a little bit of everything: good pitching, defense, situational hitting, small ball, and some power. And the 2005 White Sox, I mean, they weren't exactly a juggernaut of a team. I mean, Paul Konerko is a great player, I mean, guys like Paul Konerko, AJ Brzezinski, Joe Creedy, Jermaine Dye, Tadahito Iguchi, Aaron Rowan, the pitching staff of Burley and Contreras, John Garland, Freddie Garcia, Neil Kotz, the late great Bobby Jenks at the end of the bullpen. That was a core. I mean, they weren't the best guys, but they were a decent group of guys. And the White Sox had a bunch of 500 seasons in the lead up to that. They went to the playoffs in 2000, and then from 01 to 04, they really couldn't get it going. But then in 05, everything seemed to work for them. They went 99-63, lost just one game in the postseason, and won the World Series. And I thought the Giants were going to have that kind of season this year. And it is just really it's really upsetting to see just how far they have fallen. And Kyle says currently they're doing a lot of things on like the White Sox do on the field too. Yeah, just not the 2005 White Sox. More like the 2024 and 2025 White Sox. That was the quip you were trying to make, right, Kyle? So tomorrow, or shall I say today, because it's 12:16 in the morning, hey, there's a reason this show is called the Insomniac Lunatic Fringe. The Giants will try and avoid the sweep, and the Giants will try to avoid falling under 500 for the first time this season. Logan Webb once again will be the stopper. It's very rare that the Giants can win a game prior to one of his starts, though they were able to last Wednesday. And the right-hander Mike Burrows will go for Pittsburgh. The season's also gone a lot like 2022. In 2022, they were riding high after the 107-win season of 2021. They got off to the 13-5 start through April 26th. They won the makeup game in Milwaukee on the 25th, and they were just kicking ass when they got after that 13-5 start too. Now, granted, they were hitting a lot of home runs, but they were winning. And it certainly felt like, hey, 107 wins last year. Here we go again here in 2022. And they stayed, but then they started running into problems at the end of April and the beginning of May. They did stay, over 500 and weren't in any real danger of falling to or under 500, but then they just collapsed in July. And this year was the same thing. 24-14, started having problems in May, stayed over 500. We're never in too much danger of falling to or under 500, but have collapsed here in July. All right, Kyle confirms that indeed his quip was about the 2024 and 2025 Chicago White Sox. So tomorrow, you might say tomorrow's the first must-win game of the season. Or shall we say today? And I will be there, which means I need to get some sleep. Kyle, thank you so much for contributing. Kyle Foster. For Kyle and for my boss, Lee Leonard at Sports Radio Service, because the Insomniac Lunatic Fringe is a production of Sports Radio Service. I'm Stephen Rubin. Hope you enjoyed my rants and musings tonight. Must win today. Giants need to win to avoid falling under 500 for the first time this season. Have a good night, folks. I'll talk to you soon.